casual. We can walk around, talk, you know, shout out your questions, and we'll have a good time kind of exploring all around the cemetery. So, thoughts, questions, before we're just going to walk right over to that first stone that's like right there and talk about who Adelia is. Anyone else want a flyer thing?
My purse is in the car, so I was getting one before.
Okay, don't let me forget. Okay. Not like there's a, you know, traffic jam here, right? Yeah, when I first came out here, I met Reggie, who's the manager of the cemetery, and she's like, Adelia, it's right here. What can we don't know anything about her. Who is she, and what is, you know, what do we know about her? And it's Holiday. She's Adelia Holiday, who's married to John Dexter, so she's actually Adelia Dexter. And it's not like a Bethlehem name, right? It's not like a Slingerland or a Selkirk where I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard of them. So I looked up some stuff about Adelia, and she, like a lot of people, can connect local people to like this wider scope of history, you know, that's out there in the United States. So Adelia, which by the way means nice, princess, and proud. So when you go looking in the newspaper for people's names, I came up with this handy little thing from 1891 on the meanings of girls' names, and there was boys' names, but I didn't pick that out. And there's Adelia on there. If you want to take a look and see if any familiar names on there. I think Susan is on there. I think it's something about a lily or something like that. But Adelia, buried right here. Let's see, I found out through the census that Adelia and John had 6 children. Moretta, George, Louis, Henry, Emma, and Maylie. By 1880, they were living on Spring Street in Albany, and John was a teamster. And in that same year, 1880, Adelia voted. She voted at the local races for alderman in the city of Albany. Now keep in mind, New York didn't pass women's suffrage until 1917. The United States, it was not till 1920. But in New York, in 1880, women were allowed to vote in local school elections. So she voted. And I know this because in the newspaper, there's an article headlined, Women Voters, in the Albany Evening Journal, and it has a list of first-time women voters whose names will be accordingly be handed down to posterity. Well, we didn't know who Adelia is, but anyway. And there's Adelia Dexter of Spring Street. She's right there. And the article also noted that, and I quote, in the 17th Ward inspectors very ungallantly refused to accept the ladies' votes, although 3 of them were registered. So there's pushback in 1880, right, about voting. And then in a nearby column, there's an article about the Albany County Women's Suffrage Society will hold its 6th meeting at Tweedle Hall at 7:30 to celebrate the first vote of women in Albany, admission free, if you wanted to go. So I just love that local connection, which then makes you think, well, what else in Bethlehem, right? It has to do with women's suffrage. And we did have a Delmar Suffrage Society, Suffrage Club. Jenny B. King was the president, and she lived here in Delmar, and she actually ran a corset shop on Pearl Street in Albany. She ran the local Delmar Suffrage Club. And then there's another gentleman who had a large role in the early part of the suffrage movement, and that was Judge Elisha Hurlbut. Ever heard of Hurlbut Street in Albany? If you go down Delaware Avenue, it's named after the judge. He actually lived in Glenmont, and he wrote an essay back in 1841 about the rights of women that really influenced the suffragettes and their work. So just that kind of connection to the, you know, who knew? From wondering who Adelia Holiday is, that we could get to women's right and women's suffrage. And that's just kind of cool. Any other thoughts, questions about Adelia?
Does it give cause of death?
I don't know her cause of death. I didn't write it down. Yeah. But she was 59, so not, you know, good age. So often in cemeteries like this, I think I told you this cemetery is established 1865. Gravestones and people were moved here. And often it's those little tiny cemeteries that are in the way, or they're on someone's property, or they're under the road, and they get moved here. And we're going to go over here to a spot where there's a Revolutionary War veteran whose grave was moved here.